I stood in the corner of the glittering banquet hall, clutching my purse like it was the last piece of my dignity. My daughter's groom, Nathan, had just leaned in close, his cologne sharp enough to choke me, and whispered, "Evelyn, try not to embarrass Sophia tonight. You're a bit low class for this crowd." His smirk cut deeper than the words. I forced a smile, my heart splintering, and nodded. But inside, I was screaming. 3 days later, it'd be the one standing in front of him, holding a secret that would make his polished world crumble. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're from. My name is Evelyn Harper, and this is the story of how I lost my daughter, my pride, and almost myself until I found something Nathan never saw coming. Id raised Sophia alone after her father walked out when she was 6. Liam, my son, was just a baby then. We lived in a cramped apartment above a laundromat, the hum of dryers our lullaby. I worked double shifts as a nurse, my hands raw from sanitizers, my back aching from lifting patients. But every night, Id tuck Sophia and Liam into bed, promising them a better life. One day, Id whisper, "Well, have a house with a garden." Sophia would giggle, her brown eyes bright, and say, "With roses, Mama?" I'd nod, even though I didn't know if I could keep that promise. Sophia was my dreamer. Shed sketch dresses in her notebook, talk about becoming a designer. I saved every penny for her art classes, even when it meant skipping meals. Liam was quieter, my steady boy, always fixing things or leaky sink, my broken heart. By the time Sophia was in college, I'd managed to buy a small house. No garden yet, but a start. She'd come home on weekends, her laughter filling the rooms. Then she met Nathan. Nathan Caldwell was everything I was-rich, polished, born into a world of private schools and country clubs. He swept Sophia off her feet with designer bags and trips to Paris. I liked him at first. His charm was disarming, his smile practiced, but there was a coldness in his eyes when he looked at me, like I was a stain on his perfect life. Beatrice, his mother, was worse. At our first meeting, she scanned my thrift store dress and said, "Oh, Evelyn, you're so practical." Her laugh was a knife. The wedding planning was where it started to hurt. Sophia wanted a small ceremony, but Nathan and Beatrice insisted on a spectacle, 500 guests, a cathedral, a reception at a vineyard estate. I offered to help with costs, dipping into my savings, but Beatrice waved me off. "We've got this, Evelyn. You just show up." Sophia didn't argue. She stopped calling as often, her texts short and vague. I told myself she was busy, but deep down, I felt her slipping away. The rehearsal dinner was my first warning. I arrived in my best dress, a navy blue one I'd saved for months to buy. Beatrice greeted me with a tight smile and said, "Oh, Evelyn, you didn't have to try so hard." Nathan chuckled, and Sophia looked away, her face flushed. I swallowed the lump in my throat and sat at the edge of the table, ignored as they toasted to family. Liam, wad-driven 6 hours from his construction job, squeezed my hand under the table. "They're snobs, Ma," he whispered. "You're worth 10 of them." I smiled, but the ache in my chest grew. The wedding day was worse. I'd spent weeks sewing a shawl to match my dress, wanting to look like I belonged. But when I arrived, Beatrice ushered me to a side room. "Evelyn, we've got a special seat for you near the kitchen. It's quieter there." My heart sank. Sophia was in her gown, radiant, but she didn't meet my eyes. "It's fine, Mom," she mumbled. "Just don't make a scene." I nodded, my throat tight, and took my place among the clatter of dishes, invisible to the guests. Nathan's words from later that night class burned into me. That night, alone in my hotel room, I cried until my ribs hurt. I'd given Sophia everything, and she'd let them push me aside. But something else was nagging at me, a memory I couldn't place. Nathan's voice. A phone call I'd overheard months ago. Something about keeping it from her. I didn't know what it meant, but it felt wrong. The next morning, I called Maggie Ellison, my old friend and a lawyer who'd helped me through my divorce. "Maggie," I said, my voice shaking, "I need you to look into Nathan Caldwell. What she found changed everything." I sat in Maggie's office 3 days after the wedding, my hands trembling as I clutched a styrofoam cup of coffee that had gone cold. The hum of her ancient air conditioner filled the silence as she flipped through a stack of papers, her brow furrowed. "Evelyn," she said finally, her voice low, "you're not going to like this, but Nathan Caldwell isn't who he says he is." My stomach dropped. I'd suspected something was off, but hearing it confirmed felt like a punch to the gut. Maggie slid a folder across her desk, and what I saw inside made my blood run cold. "Let me take you back to the weeks before the wedding, when the cracks in my world started to show. Sophia had always been my anchor, the girl who'd cling to me during thunderstorms, promising she'd never leave me like her father did. But Nathan changed her. It wasn't just the fancy dresses, or the way she started pronouncing schedule like schedule. It was the way she stopped looking me in the eye. When I'd call to ask about wedding plans, she'd rush me off the phone. "Mom!" Im swamped. Nathan's handling it. Nathan's handling it. Those words became a wall between us. Liam noticed it too. He'd come home one weekend, his work boots leaving mud on my porch, and found me staring at a photo of Sophia and me from her high school graduation. "She's not herself, Ma," he said, his voice tight. "That guy's got her wrapped around his finger." I wanted to defend her, to say she was just in love, but I couldn't shake the memory of Nathan's smirk when Head handed me a glass of cheap wine at a family dinner, saying, "This one's more your speed, Evelyn." Beatrice had laughed, and Sophia had stayed silent. The wedding itself was a blur of humiliation. After being shunted to the kitchen, I'd watched from the shadows as Sophia danced with Nathan, her smile wide but her eyes distant. I kept replaying her words. Don't make a scene. Had I raised her to be this ashamed of me? I'd spent years sacrificing missing sleep, skipping vacations, selling my mother's ring to pay for her college textbooks, and now I was an embarrassment. Liam stayed by my side, his jaw clenched. "They're gonna regret this, Ma," he whispered as we left the reception early. I didn't know how right he was. Back in Maggie's office, she tapped the folder. "Nathan's been lying about his finances," she said. "His family's trust fund? It's a house of cards. Offshore accounts, shady loans, and a string of lawsuits he's been dodging for years." I stared at her, my mind racing. "What about Sophia?" I asked. Maggie hesitated, her eyes softening. "She doesn't know. But there's more, Evelyn. Nathan's been meeting with a private investigator. Has been digging into your past." My past? I was an open book nurse, a single mom, a woman who'd clawed her way out of poverty. But then Maggie showed me the emails she'd uncovered. Nathan had hired someone to tail me, to find dirt he could use to keep me out of Sophia's life. Had even paid a hacker to access my bank records, looking for anything to paint me as unfit. The betrayal stung, but it was the next revelation that broke me. "There's a trust," Maggie said. "Your mother left it for you, not Sophia. It's worth $2.3 million, Evelyn. Nathan's been trying to get his hands on it." I felt like the floor had vanished. My mother, Wad died when I was 20, had never mentioned a trust. She'd been a seamstress, barely scraping by. How could she have left me millions? Maggie explained. Mom had invested in a small tech company decades ago, a favor for a friend. That company exploded, and Shed tucked the money away, naming me as the sole beneficiary. The catch? It was locked until I turned 60 unless I contested it early, which required legal proof of need. Nathan had somehow found out and was planning to manipulate Sophia into convincing me to release it early, claiming it was for their future. I drove home in a daze, my hands shaking on the wheel. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at a photo of Sophia as a toddler, her tiny hand in mine. I wanted to call her, to scream, to beg her to see Nathan for who he was. But I knew she wouldn't listen. She was too far gone, dazzled by his promises of a perfect life. Liam called, sensing something was wrong. "Ma, what's going on?" he asked. I told him everything, my voice breaking. "We're not letting him win," Liam said, his tone hard. "I've got an idea." Liam's idea was risky, but it lit a spark in me. For the first time in months, I felt like I wasn't just a victim. But before I could act, Nathan made his next move on that would push me to the edge. The phone rang at 2 a.m., jarring me awake. My heart pounded as I fumbled for it, thinking it might be Sophia. Instead, Nathan's voice slithered through the line. "Evelyn, we need to talk about your mother's trust," he said, his tone smooth but edged with menace. "Sophia's future depends on it. You wouldn't want to ruin her happiness, would you?" I froze, my breath catching. He didn't even try to hide that he knew. I mumbled something about needing time and hung up, my hands shaking. That call wasn't just a threat, it was a declaration of war. The next morning, I sat at my kitchen table, replaying Nathan's words. His audacity stunned me. He thought I was weak, a pushover hard hand over everything just to keep the peace. But he didn't know the fire had lit. I'd spent decades fighting for my kids against poverty, against judgment, against a world that told us we weren't enough. I wasn't about to let some smug con artist take what my mother had left me. Not without a fight. Liam came over that afternoon, his construction boots leaving dust on my floor. Had always been my rock, the one who'd fix anything broken, from a faucet to my spirit. "Ma, we need to play his game better than he does," he said, his eyes fierce. His plan was bold. We'd let Nathan think I was considering signing over the trust, string him along, while Maggie dug deeper into his finances. If we could expose him before he got to the money, we could protect Sophia. But it meant lying to my daughter, something I'd never done. The thought made my chest ache, but I nodded. Let's do it. Over the next week, I played the part of the obedient mother. I called Sophia, my voice soft, saying I was thinking about the trust. She sounded relieved, almost giddy. "Oh, Mom, that's amazing! Nathan says it'll secure our future, a house, kids, everything." Her words cut deep. She didn't ask how I was, didn't mention the wedding or my humiliation. It was like I was just a means to an end. I swallowed my hurt and said, "I'll talk to my lawyer, sweetheart." After we hung up, I cried, my tears soaking the photo of us I kept on my fridge. Maggie worked fast. She found more dirt on Nathan. A trail of failed businesses, a gambling debt Head hidden from his family, and a second phone number registered under a fake name. The private investigator Head hired to dig into me had kept records, and Maggie got her hands on them. Nathan had paid the PI to fabricate lies claims I'd been negligent as a mother, that I'd mismanaged money. He was building a case to have me declared unfit if I didn't comply. The betrayal was suffocating, but it was Maggie's next discovery that stopped me cold. "There's a prenup," she said over coffee, her voice hushed. "Nathan made Sophia sign one, but it's one-sided. If they divorce, she gets nothing unless the trust is in her name first." My heart sank. Nathan wasn't just after my money, he was trapping my daughter. If I signed over the trust, He'd control it. If I didn't, He'd ruin her. I felt like I was drowning, but Maggie grabbed my hand. "Evelyn, we can use this." Hess overplayed his hand. I spent sleepless nights wrestling with what to do. Part of me wanted to confront Sophia, to shake her until she saw the truth. But I knew she'd defend Nathan, accuse me of being jealous or bitter. Instead, I leaned on Liam. Had been quietly gathering his own evidence texts Nathan had sent to Beatrice, bragging about handling Evelyn. Liam hacked into Nathan's second phone, something He'd learned from a tech-savvy coworker. What he found made my skin crawl. Nathan was planning to move the trust money offshore the moment it was released, leaving Sophia with nothing. I decided it was time to act. I called Nathan and arranged a meeting at a diner, somewhere public where he couldn't intimidate me. He showed up in a tailored suit, his smile as slick as ever. "Evelyn, I'm glad you're being reasonable," he said, sipping his coffee like we were old friends. I played along, nodding, asking questions about the trust paperwork. But inside, I was memorizing every word, every glance. I needed him to think He'd won. That night, Liam and I met with Maggie to finalize our plan. It was risky, maybe even cruel, but Nathan had pushed me too far. I wasn't just fighting for the money, I was fighting for my daughter, for the life I'd built, for the woman I'd forgotten I could be. But before we could set things in motion, Sophia showed up at my door, her eyes red from crying. Sophia stood on my porch, her makeup smudged, her shoulders shaking. It was the first time I'd seen her since the wedding, and she looked small, like the little girl who'd run to me with scraped knees. "Mom," she whispered, her voice cracking, "I think I made a mistake." My heart leaped and shattered at once. I pulled her inside, wrapping her in my arms as she sobbed. But even as I held her, I wondered if this was real or if Nathan had sent her to manipulate me further. We sat on the couch, a pot of tea steaming between us. Sophia wiped her eyes, her diamond ring catching the light like a taunt. "Nathan's been acting strange," she said, her words tumbling out. "He keeps talking about your trust, pushing me to convince you. And last night, I found emails. He's been lying about his job. The company's in trouble, Mom. We're drowning in debt." I listened, my face calm, but inside, a storm raged. She didn't know the half of it, the prenup, the offshore plans, the way he'd spied on me. I wanted to tell her everything, to protect her like I always had, but I held back. Liam's plan depended on timing. I stroked her hair, murmuring comforts. "Why didn't you tell me sooner, sweetheart?" She looked down, twisting her ring. "I was ashamed. You warned me about rushing, but I thought you were just old-fashioned." Her words stung, echoing Nathan's low-class jab. I swallowed the hurt and asked gently, "What do you want to do?" She hesitated, then said, "I need the trust money, Mom, to fix this, please." There it was, the manipulation, whether she knew it or not. My chest tightened. "I'll think about it." I lied, hating myself for it. After she left, promising to call soon, I paced the living room. The pain was unbearable seeing my daughter broken, used as a pawn. I called Liam, my voice trembling. She came over, crying. "Nathan's debts are worse than we thought." Liam cursed under his breath. "That's our opening, Ma. We expose him now." But I wasn't ready. I needed proof that would shatter Sophia's illusions without destroying her. Maggie suggested we meet Nathan again, this time recording everything. It was illegal in some states, but desperation made me agree. The next day, I met Nathan at the same diner. He looked harried, his tie loose, his charm cracking. "Evelyn, have you decided?" he asked, leaning forward. I nodded slowly, pulling out fake paperwork. Maggie had prepared documents that looked real but were laced with trackers. "I'll sign," I said, my voice steady. "But I want assurances for Sophia." He smirked, grabbing the papers. "Smart choice. She'll thank you." As he signed, I activated the hidden recorder in my purse. He rambled about investments, admitting the debts, the lies. It was all there, his confession. Driving home, I felt a mix of triumph and nausea. I'd tricked him, but at what cost? That night, Beatrice called, her voice icy. "Evelyn, stay out of our business. Nathan told me about your little meeting. If you back out, we'll make sure Sophia sees you for the bitter woman you are." Her threat fueled my resolve. I wasn't bitter. I was a mother fighting for her child. Liam came over, and we reviewed the recording with Maggie. "This is gold," she said. "We can file charges, fraud, coercion. But we need to tell Sophia first." Telling Sophia was the hardest part. I invited her over under the pretense of discussing the trust. When she arrived, Liam was there, his face serious. We sat her down, and I played the recording. Her eyes widened as Nathan's voice filled the room, admitting everything, the spying, the debts, the plan to flee with the money. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "This can't be real." Tears streamed down her face. "He loves me, Mom," he said. Her voice broke, and she collapsed into sobs. I held her, my own tears falling. "I'm so sorry, baby. But you deserve better." The room was heavy with grief. Sophia's world was crumbling, and I felt guilty for being the one to swing the hammer. But as she clung to me, whispering, "I should have listened," I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe we could rebuild. Liam squeezed my shoulder, his eyes proud. But Nathan wasn't done yet. The next morning, he showed up at my door, furious, demanding the real papers. That's when everything exploded. Nathan banged on my door like a man possessed, his face twisted in rage. "Open up, Evelyn! I know what you're doing," he shouted, his voice echoing through the quiet neighborhood. I froze, my heart slamming against my ribs. Sophia was still here, her eyes wide with fear, and Liam stood protectively in front of us. This wasn't part of the plan, Nathan. Wasn't supposed to find out yet. But as he pounded harder, I realized he'd somehow discovered the fake papers. The confrontation I dreaded was here, and it was uglier than I imagined. I opened the door just a crack, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. "Nathan, leave now, or I'll call the police," he sneered, pushing against the door. "You think you can outsmart me? Those documents are worthless. Hand over the real ones, or I'll make sure Sophia never speaks to you again." Sophia gasped behind me, stepping forward. "Nathan? What's going on?" He faltered for a second, his mask slipping, then plastered on a smile. "Soph, baby, your mom's trying to sabotage us. She's jealous." But Sophia's face hardened. "I heard the recording, Nathan. It's over." The air thickened with tension. Nathan's eyes darted between us, realization dawning. "What recording?" he spat. Liam stepped up, phone in hand, replaying the diner confession. Nathan's voice boomed, admitting the fraud, the spying, the plan to steal the trust. Nathan went pale, his bravado crumbling. "That's edited! Lies!" he yelled, lunging for the phone. Liam shoved him back, and Nathan stumbled onto the porch. "You low-class bitch!" he snarled at me. "You'll regret this." Those words, low class, echoed from the wedding, igniting my fury. Sophia screamed, "Get out!" tears streaming as she slammed the door in his face. We heard him cursing, kicking the railing, then his car peeling away. Inside, Sophia collapsed onto the floor, sobbing hysterically. "How could I be so blind?" she wailed. I knelt beside her, holding her tight, my own tears mixing with hers. "It's not your fault, baby. He fooled us all." But deep down, I blamed myself for not seeing it sooner, for letting her drift away. Liam paced, fists clenched. "We need to call Maggie. Get a restraining order." The next hours blurred into chaos. Maggie arrived, her face grim as we recounted everything. "This is enough for charges," she said, reviewing the recording. "Fraud, harassment, attempted extortion." We filed a police report that night. The officers sympathetic as I explained the wedding humiliation, the threats, the betrayal. Sophia gave her statement through tears, admitting she'd signed the prenup without reading it fully. "I trusted him," she whispered. Watching her, my heart broke anew. I'd raised her to be strong, yet here she was, shattered by a man I'd let into our lives. As the police left, Beatrice called Nathan's phone. We'd blocked him, but she got through on Sophia's. "You ungrateful girl," she hissed when Sophia answered on speaker. "Nathan's done everything for you. Your mother's poisoning you." Sophia's voice shook but held firm. "No, Beatrice. I know the truth now. Stay away from us." She hung up, her hands trembling, but there was a spark in her eyes, a glimpse of the fighter I'd raised. I hugged her, whispering, "I'm proud of you." That night, sleep evaded me. I lay in bed replaying the day's horrors. The pain was raw, the loss of trust, the family fractures. But amidst the darkness, a light emerged. Sophia stayed over, curling up in her old room like she used to. Liam crashed on the couch, his presence a comfort. For the first time in months, we felt like a family again, bonded by adversity. I thought of my mother's trust, not as money, but as a legacy of resilience. She'd hidden it to protect me, just as I was protecting Sophia now. The following days were a whirlwind. Nathan was arrested for fraud turns. Out Maggie's digging uncovered more victims, a web of scams stretching back years. Beatrice disowned him publicly, but not before trying to sue for emotional distress. It failed spectacularly. Sophia filed for annulment. Her lawyer, Maggie, of course ensuring she walked away unscathed. As for the trust, I accessed it early, using part to help Sophia start over. Therapy, a small apartment, even seed money for her design dreams. But the real healing came slowly. Sophia and I talked for hours, unpacking the wedding, the distance, the hurts. "I was ashamed of where we came from," she admitted one evening over tea. "Nathan made me feel like I had to hide it." I nodded, sharing my own insecurities. "I felt like I wasn't enough for you." We cried, forgave, and promised to rebuild. Liam mediated, his quiet strength holding us together. Yet, Nathan had one last twist up his sleeve, something that would force a final, explosive showdown. Nathan's arrest made headlines in our small town, local businessman charged with fraud embezzlement. I watched the news from my living room, Sophia beside me, her hand in mine. Beatrice's attempts to bail him out failed when his assets were frozen. But Nathan, ever the schemer, had one final play. From jail, he contacted Sophia anonymously, sending her a package, forged documents claiming I'd hidden the trust from her deliberately, that I was the manipulator. "Your mother's been lying," the note read. "She never wanted you to have a better life." It was his desperate bid to turn her against me again. Sophia showed me the package that evening, her face pale. "Is this true, Mom?" she asked, her voice small. I took a deep breath, sitting her down. "No, sweetheart, your grandma set it up that way to protect us. I didn't even know until recently." I showed her the real papers from Maggie, explaining everything. Tears welled in her eyes. "He won't stop, will he?" she whispered. I shook my head, pulling her close. "But we will. Together." Liam arrived, furious about the package. "That's harassment. We'll add it to the charges." Maggie agreed, filing an emergency motion. The courtroom was my battlefield. Nathan's trial was expedited due to the evidence mountain. I testified first, my voice steady as I recounted the wedding insult, the threats, the diner confession. The judge's eyes narrowed at the low-class remark. Sophia went next, her testimony raw admitting her blindness, describing the prenup trap. Nathan glared from the defendant's table, but when he took the stand, his charm evaporated. Under cross-examination, he crumbled, admitting partial guilt to lesser charges. Beatrice sat in the gallery, her face a mask of disdain, but she fled when the verdict came. Guilty on all counts. 5 years in prison. Restitution ordered. The climax hit outside the courthouse. As we exited, Beatrice confronted us, her voice shrill. "This is your fault, Evelyn! You ruined my son!" Sophia stepped forward, her chin high. "No, Beatrice. He ruined himself, and you enabled him." I watched, proud, as Sophia turned away, linking arms with me and Liam. Nathan, in handcuffs, was led past us. Our eyes looked small, defeated. "You win," he muttered. I didn't gloat. I just nodded. Family always does. In the days after, emotional release flooded me. I visited my mother's grave, the trust money allowing me to finally plant those roses Sophia had dreamed of as a child. "Thank you, Mom," I whispered, tears falling. The pain of betrayal, humiliation eased into scars, reminders of my strength. Sophia moved back in temporarily, our bond mending through late-night talks and shared meals. Liam started a small business with part of the trust, his dream of stability realized. But the true triumph was internal. I'd been low class in their eyes, but I'd risen as a queen. No more hiding my worth. Sophia designed a dress for me, a symbol of our fresh start, and we wore matching ones to a family dinner, laughing like old times. One loose end remained. Nathan's secret, the one I'd uncovered but held back. It would deliver the final karma blow. The secret I'd held back was buried in Nathan's past, something Maggie uncovered during her deepest dig. Nathan Caldwell wasn't born a Caldwell, he was adopted. But more than that, his real father was a notorious con artist who'd swindled families out of millions before disappearing. Nathan had changed his name to escape the legacy, but he'd inherited the trade. Worse, he had a hidden family, a wife and child in another state, abandoned when he targeted Sophia. The proof was ironclad marriage certificates, child support records, photos from the PI he'd ironically hired. I revealed it during Nathan's sentencing hearing, where victims could speak. Standing before the judge, my voice echoed in the packed courtroom. "Your Honor, Nathan Caldwell isn't just a fraud, he's a bigamist and a deadbeat father." I presented the documents, Maggie's folder shaking slightly in my hands. Nathan's face drained of color, his lawyer scrambling. Beatrice gasped from the gallery, her world shattering. "No," she mouthed. But the evidence was undeniable. The judge's gavel fell harder additional charges for bigamy. Sentence extended to 10 years. Nathan was led away in chains, his eyes pleading with Beatrice, who turned her back on him, tears streaming. The karma was poetic, raw. Nathan, who'd called me low class, was exposed as the ultimate fraud, his polished facade stripped bare. Humiliation washed over him as reporters swarmed outside, flashing cameras capturing his downfall. Beatrice, once haughty, slunk away, her social circle evaporating. She lost the family estate to lawsuits, ending up in a modest apartment much like the one I'd raised my kids in. Sophia watched the news with me, her hand over her mouth. "He deserved it," she said, her voice firm. I nodded, feeling a weight lift. No more tears of painfully release, a cathartic triumph. In the quiet aftermath, I reflected on my journey. I'd started as a broken mother, hidden in a kitchen at my daughter's wedding, feeling worthless. But pain had forged resilience. The trust money wasn't just fun-sit, was freedom. I bought that garden house, roses blooming vibrant red. Sophia and I planted them together, our hands in the soil, healing old wounds. "I'm sorry, Mom," she said one afternoon, her eyes misty. "For everything." I hugged her. "We're here now. That's what matters." Liam thrived in his business, often joking. "Ma, you're the boss now." Family dinners became ritual, laughter replacing silence. Life wasn't perfect, scars lingered, trust rebuilt, brick by brick. But I emerged stronger, a woman who'd turned betrayal into victory. If there's a lesson, it's this. Never underestimate a mother's love. It can move mountains, topple empires. Thanks for listening. If this story hit you in the heart, don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.